Nice to see you here, so many web developers. And I'm going to continue with the topic about an AI gateway. This will be the connection between TYPO3 and AI services. Well, I work for Page Machine. We are a TYPO3 agency based on Frankfurt. This is our beautiful main river, and that's the ECB building bank. And yeah, a bit of me. I have 15 years of experience. I was working for IBM 7 years as consultant, and after that I was a researcher for the Frankfurt University of Applied Sciences. And right now I work for Page Machine since 4 years, and I've been doing TYPO3 development and yeah, some things with AI. And yeah, and this project will help you to do better websites using AI. And this is our agenda. First, why an AI gateway? And I will explain a bit how to implement it. After that, in the middle, we do a small demo. That's going to be the fun part. And at the end, I want to say some challenges that we face in this project that we took since 1 year ago. And to finalize next steps in our research and some questions if we have time. Okay. So everything started 2 years ago when we saw the first TYPO3 extension using AI services. It was to create content, and you write something, and you can send this to OpenAI using this API, and you get the response to improve this text. But we wanted to do something more with these AI services. Therefore, we found that a common problem that our clients have thousands of images without metadata, and this metadata helps to improve the CEO. So the solution we thought is to use automated services with AI to improve this CEO, and we made it possible. We use these AI services, and we reduce the time from 8 hours for 100 images to only 25 minutes. That is 15 seconds per image instead of 5 minutes. What is the business impact of this? Well, we improve the CEO because we have better descriptions for the alt text of the images. The accessibility is also improved because you can describe the images when you have visual disabilities. The content management helps also because you can organize all these images, categorize, and then retrieve them for searching. Well, this automation helps you to reduce time, and so your editors and your developers can focus in other more strategic tasks. The implementation. Well, this is the first implementation, and the main idea was to use a free and open source model. So to do that, and that's why, because we wanted to keep the data privacy. That was very important because we didn't want to send the images to servers, for example, for OpenAI, and sometimes they keep the images to train their models, and we didn't want to do that. Therefore, we wanted to have our own models, and we looked for free models, and we wanted to have our own infrastructure with servers. So we use this CogVLM model, which can understand image and text. And for the translation of these descriptions, because the model is trained in English, we use this NLBB model from Facebook. The GPU server has 20 gigabytes of RAM. It's, well, kind of small, but it is enough to meet our requests. Talking a bit about more the models, CogVLM can understand images, but not only that. Usually the old models only list what is in an image. For example, the old AWS recognition service can tell you this is a dog, this is a house, but cannot explain what is happening in the image. New models like OpenAI or this one, CogBLM, can tell you what is happening in the image. Like the dog is running, it's dark, it's night, it's the sunset. This model has been trained only in English with text-image pairs. So you have an image and then the description, what's happening. But everything is in English. That means that it's not multilingual, and the prompts and the answers are always in English. Therefore, we needed a way to translate that. We use this no language left behind model from Meta, Facebook. With this model, you can translate between over 200 languages, and it reads and understands the whole sentences. That's very important because sometimes in German, the sentences are very long and they have the verb until the end. And all the meaning of the sentence can change if you don't read it all. So this model can read all the sentence, and then the translation is directly to the language you want. Sometimes other models or other translators do the translation in steps, like for example from German to English and then to Spanish, but this one does it directly, which is faster and more accurate. Well, the data flow of this idea. First is to send the image from TYPO3 to the model. After that, we check if we need to translate it or not, and then we save it to the TYPO3 database. Very simple, right? Well, to do this, we needed much more than just TYPO3. First of all, we need the TYPO3 extension, right? The connection between TYPO3 and the AI services. But after that, we need a way to talk with the models because they are not services. Therefore, we create an API with Fast API. Maybe you have used it. It's based on Python. You can create an API very fast and put it in production. And this API can manage also queues to manage a request in parallel. Now, how we can access these services? You need an API key, right? Like when you do an OpenAI request. And you use this API key, and you need to generate it and keep a database of those API keys. That's why we use Conch for that. Conch is manage all the API keys, and is our gateway through the API keys to the services. But we need also to keep track of how much they use these API keys with credits. With the credits, we create this credits API, which is like our bank. You go to the bank and you ask, oh, I want to do a description. Oh, do you have credits? Oh, yeah, I have these credits. This is my API key. This is my account number, like your API key. And then I will discount those credits from your account, and then I give you back the money, the translation, right? So credits API key is like our bank. And we use the accounts are like the API keys. But we need to sell also those API keys, right? Therefore, we need a web shop. We choose Shopware because Shopware is based in Symfony, like TYPO3, very similar. We use PHP, Vue.js, and yeah. And we have the Shopware, the web store on Shopware to sell these API keys. Going a bit deeper on the architecture, we mainly have two big servers. The blue one is our GPU server. And in that server, we have the models running all the time. And in front of them, we can see this small box is the API to access the models. And this API also have the queues there and the logging of the requests. In this, the red box is a cloud server, small. And in this cloud server, we have the credits API, this one here. This is our bank. And then we have Conch, which is like the gatekeeper. And then we have a web shop here. And you access from the TYPO3 extension to the bank with this HTTP request. For the billing, we use a Stripe. Stripe, maybe you have used it, can create the invoices automatically, and also you can pay with credit cards or PayPal or whatever. And you can access the shop through your browser. Okay, so let's jump a bit to code. These are the main controllers for our extension in TYPO3. I would like to talk about these controllers because, well, we need a controller to get the credits from the bank, to update the credits from the bank, and to check the credits if you still have. We have another controller, which is like the most important, is the one that sends the request for the image recognition and then saves the metadata in the database directly. And well, these are some of the functions that we are using there. The services. Well, the services, we thought that it would be nice not only to use our own servers. We thought that maybe we want to connect ChatGPT or another third-party AWS or any other service. Therefore, we create an interface with these methods, send credits to the API, to send the file to the API. And at the moment, we only implement this one, which connects to AI Gude, which is our own server. But these other services are also in place, and we are not using it yet, but we could do that also. It's flexible to do that extension. Well, the API to talk to the models, this API is in front of the models in the blue box, if you remember. This API, we have these main functions. We have a function to generate captions from the URL or also from the files. And we resize the images. Why? Because we used to have images at 4K, but the problem with that is like the difference between 4K and 180p recognizing objects is nothing. They recognize the same objects, but with the 4K, because you have more pixels, it was taking much more time. Therefore, we decided that from 180p or more, we resize it. And that way, we optimize the time and we have the same result. That was very important. The translation works flawlessly. You only give the text and from source to target language. So that's the only thing we need here to connect, to talk with the model. However, sometimes the server, the GPU server was overloaded. When we have 5 requests in parallel, it was overloaded. So it was crashing, swapping memory. So we decided to install a semaphore. This is a way to improve the stability. Imagine the semaphore like you arrive to a coffee shop and you have this line of people, and you can put 10 persons in this line, but after the 11th, you need to wait outside the shop. So if we get more requests from that, we say service unavailable. But at the end, these 10 persons who arrive at the same time, they will get answers from the service. Before the GPU server was crashing. That's why also the semaphore was a very important part for the implementation in front of the models. Well, as mentioned before, we use Kong, like the gatekeeper. He knows which accounts exist, which API keys exist. He validates the request. If the API key is expired or is revoked or not. And this here are the gateway services. The gateway services is like, Kong is like a proxy. Once he checks that your API key is valid, he will reroute your request to these services, which are, if you can see, the translation and the image to description for URLs or to files. Well, now let's talk about the credits API, also implemented with Fast API in Python. This is our bank, as I mentioned, and it will receive the request for image processing or translation. It will validate that that API key has credit balance. That's if you don't have, well, you cannot use it. And it will keep track of how many credits you have been used and deduct the credits accordingly. If you don't have credits, then you get an email from this API also. Some endpoints created in this API are remaining credits because you want to check maybe your bank account, how many credits you still have. Well, you can post the translation. If you need a translation, you give it to the endpoint. You can calculate before doing the translation how many credits you will need for this translation, or maybe you need 100 translations. You need to calculate that before doing the translation itself. Also, you can do the image to description from URLs and calculate also how much it will cost the description of an image. Some shopware classes, because we also had to do a small extension for shopware. So we had to create an entity called package, and this package will contain the API keys. And you want to know if this API key is blocked, if it's a free one. And we have a subscriber, which is like a hook for an event. And it will be hearing for events when an order from an API key is paid. If it's paid, then this subscriber will call to Kong, and Kong will give to the subscriber an API key, and this subscriber will send the API key to the users, to the customers, through an email. So this is done by shopware. This is a quick view of the admin module we also did. We can see here, well, these are like the orders, the API keys, the emails of the guys who bought it. And we can edit here like a bit the API keys packages, like put it like free trial or to block it or increase the credits here from the admin module. Well, now the fun part. This is our extension. If you want to try it, it's called AI Tools. It's already in the shop. And I will show you just a minute. Yeah. So, yeah, we have it here in the store already. Well, as I said, everything started on 23, but the last update is just in December last year. You can install it directly with Composer, and it works already with 13, 12, and 11, sorry. Yeah. Well, this is our website. We use TYPO3, obviously. And these are my three bosses, Stefan, Volker, and Miklos. And we want to generate, it's a bit kind of small, let me, maybe I can do it here. Yeah, I think it's better. So here you can see that we want to generate the description from this image. And we can see already that this generation is going to cost you 3 credits. That's why we had the, we were checking how many credits will cost an image. And we can configure here, they're going to be very proud. We can configure here what we want from the image. So maybe sometimes you don't, here we want the description, describe the essential content of the picture, right? But maybe in another situations you want, well, another prompts. So you can create many prompts and save them. And maybe this is the default one. and as long as you want. It's like describe the essential content of this picture, blah, 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 blah. Do not describe the background. And because this is like talking with ChatGPT directly, the AI model can understand the context of the image and change. So we generate here, oops. Okay. Yeah, you're right. We need the Wi-Fi. What was the password? Just a moment. I will use my phone. Venlo, huh? I think it's working now. Let's try it again. Okay, now it's working. So it's generating the metadata. This image, it was a bit like a 180p. It took, I don't know, 10 seconds less. And, well, now we have the description here. But if you want also the translation, maybe your website is of English and Deutsch, and you want both translations, and you want to save them directly. So you can do that here, and save the translation, well, too. And, yeah, and it's done. And this is cool, but what if you have a lot of images, right? So here, yeah, save it. So here we have in this folder 14 images. These images are different sizes. One, because in a website you only don't have small or all big images, and that's why it's gonna take, I don't know, like 1 minute to generate. So you just right-click and generate the metadata for all the images. It's already generated, that's why we are gonna skip the existing and regenerate all. Yes, it will override everything. So this is gonna take like 1 minute, and as I said, the smaller less pixels, less time, more pixels, more time. But at the end, this is gonna be faster than just writing yourself each one of the images. And yeah. We can see a bit here, all the images were generated with the prompt, the default prompt. I think it's almost done. So this is all running in our own server. It's hosted on Hetzner. Yeah. So it's done. So now you can, for example, check the images, the description, sorry. And maybe you wanna, this is the last one, and you can change it and save it for all the languages or just for this one. And yeah, I think that was faster than, I don't know, 20 minutes, right? So we have also some configurations here. That's why now it's only working with AI Gude. But we could have with the templates also here OpenAI. And this contingent here is the number of credits available. The number of credits available for this API key. Yeah? So you can buy your API key, and then you put it here, and then you have the service available in your website. And here you have also a template with all the prompts that you want. And yeah, you can change them. If you want to play, you could also visit here directly, or this is our website where you can buy the API keys, and you can You can play here directly with the models. Here we are sending the images to our server, and you can select here a prompt or ask him maybe which colors in the image. Oh. Yeah. Okay. And I don't know, maybe in Spanish. So we submit that, and this image is 4K, but it's gonna be resized. Well, blanco means white and azul blue. And you can try this now directly. If you need more, you can try 10 times, and if you need more, you can get here this package for free, and you will have 100 credits. So, leave these songs. Yeah, let's go back to the presentation. Yeah, well, so at the end, the idea was very simple, right? But this implementation took us 1 year because we faced a lot of problems, like this queue at the end. And one of those problems, these are like, I think, the main problems, the challenges, and what we learned from that. Mainly that the models are in English because the most information on the web is in English, therefore the models are trained on English. And maybe that's why the descriptions sometimes are not very accurate, because we need to translate those descriptions from English to German, etc. The overload of the server sometimes is also a problem, and we found like maybe it's going to be cheaper to have a serverless infrastructure, because having the server all the time on is like not the best option. These descriptions can also be harmful for the CEO, because sometimes they are not like you want for your website. You need to align these descriptions, if you are medical or engineering, to your website, and sometimes you need to do manual adjustments, and maybe instead of 15 seconds, it will take you 2 minutes, but that's less than 5 minutes, right? So it's like something that you need to consider also. So conclusion, we have faster times from 8 hours to 30 minutes in an ideal scenario. We have better SEO and accessibility, but the good thing about our extension is that it's scalable and it's open, and we could connect it also with these cheaper services, like DeepSeek is much more cheaper than ChatGPT, and we could do also that. We want to, for next steps, do like a serverless approach, because that reduces cost, and you can have, sometimes with the serverless, you have like a big server running for you, but it's only running when you have a request. That means that the server will turn on from cold, and that takes sometimes 5 seconds. But at the end, if you have to process 100 images, they will be processed much more faster than a small server which is turned on all the time. We want to integrate this with OpenAI. It's already there, but we didn't do it. Why? Because we wanted to focus on data privacy. Well, we wanted to give the clients the security, the confidence that the images are kept by us and they are not sent through another server or kept by anyone. The server is hosted in Germany, and that was our first motivation. And now we are doing something more interesting, video to text, because we can also use AI to get not only the subtitles, but the descriptions and the summaries from the movies, because a movie at the end is many images together, but we could get the descriptions of all these images. So imagine that you are watching The Matrix and you want to get a summary of the movie. You can do that already with free OpenAI models. Not AI, but from OpenAI, but open source models. So we want to do that with open source models, and we could organize video libraries and also give accessibility for all the users. And that's it. Thank you. We're Camp Venlo. If you have some questions, please let me know.
Coq VLM. Would it be possible to retrain the model? Would it be possible to retrain or enhance the model to recognize people's names in the images? So, for example, in your demo, you had the 3 CEOs of your company. Would it be possible for the caption that's being generated to contain their names as well?
It is possible not to, let's say, it's not a full train, but because that will take a lot of time and a bigger server. But for example, what we have done is you can exclude bad words. For example, you don't want maybe not just bad words, but you don't want to exclude some terms, and you can configure the model to customize it like that. Also, it's possible to train it, but like just the surface level of the model, not all the model, to learn about your company. But yes, like if you have a lot of tickets and you learn about the tickets, and you can tell them reply in this tone, like more, I don't know, with these terms, use these words as preferable to reply. So it is kind of possible, but not in, I mean, not in the deep way of all the levels of the model. Yeah.
It's maybe something to give to ChatGPT in a custom GPT way. Or
yes, I think.
That's not open anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, at the end, if you go for cheaper and maybe more trained to yourself, it will be better to use external services. Yeah, like OpenAI. Well, thank you very much, guys. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Mauricio. I have a little present for you, not made by AI, but made by hands.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for your enlightening talk.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Wahrscheinlich das Sign-up-Feature noch.
Ik kwam ook kijken naar de web was. Ik zag jou zitten. Dat kan wel blijven. Was dat Venlo passiert, blijft het.
So. Das ist doch, sagen wir mal, die Wolken sind unter einem Meter. Was? Bei der Pappe, das wird gleich bei der Pappe. Genau. Ich habe Terror.
Nee, hij was nog niet hier.
Kleine Terror.
Komt hij eens alleine?
Ach so, ja, das ist natürlich schon recht lange. Also wir haben einigermaßen früh angefangen, den mal kurzzeitig alleine zu lassen. Oder der sucht aber auch seine Distanz. Ne? Also wenn wir jetzt anfangen, wir sitzen im Wohnzimmer auf dem Sofa, gucken einen Film oder so, dann der hat eigentlich den Körper. Aber das ist halt und dann liegt er relativ krass rum. Oder auch jetzt, wenn wir abends noch im Büro sind oder so, ist ganz interessant eigentlich. Dann weg und dann lässt er ins Büro und im Zwischenflur vor den beiden Schlafzimmern da. Das heißt, es ist dunkel, ruhig, macht halt nichts, ne? Also, und das ist ganz witzig mit dem. Nee, der ist richtig gechillt, also das muss man wirklich sagen. Der kann auch schon dieser Terrorstadt sein, aber sonst so, also hier, der ist ja gut, das ist da merkt man das. Ne? Also wenn wir so im Büro sind oder wenn ich alleine auch im Büro bin, dann kommt es wirklich vor, dass ich den 2, 3, 4 Stunden gar nicht bemerke. Und dann irgendwann so, oh, lange kein Kontakt mit deinem Blick gehabt. Jetzt gehst du den mal hin. Ne? Also das ist schon. Machen wir. Kannst du mir ein Glas Wasser? Ja, ich hole mir eben eins. Ja, bitte.
Power. Hij was een beetje voor. Ja, zo kan ik het ook, hè? Dat is dikke gaat goed doen. Dat is wel verwacht. Taalmodel, maar...
Von den Stücken hast du wieder
das sind halt, nein, das ist nicht so
en elk antwoord wat je teruggeeft, kan het zijn dat daar ergens een sensitieve link van zitten heeft. Dat kan. En dat antwoord er wel niet te vertrouwen is. Maar diepziek waarschijnlijk niet.
Sehr gut. Die sind wir jetzt, ne?
je wel van niks.
Ja, den muss ich Montag in dem Fix.
Wieso ist denn überhaupt die Tabelle denn?
Ich frage mich sowieso, wie das Preis aussieht.
Das ist ja normalerweise ein Superpower.
Bei Superpower. Ach so, okay. Ja, ich hatte jetzt eben nur einmal schon ausgedruckt.
Das gibt es im Haus. Standard.
Uiteindelijk een beetje wijken over andere mensen die meewerken. Uiteindelijk meer met toen heeft ze besloten om ermee te stoppen. Daarna is zijn eigen bedrijf begonnen met hardware. En dat is hier op dit moment een hele grote. Dus hij lift allerlei video editing, hardware, televisie, niks te plekken, lijkt heel goed. Die leiding van het videoteam, die kennen
Sind aber
Der Stefan Ludwig ist ja mit
ja, ich weiß.
In Deutschland
Ja, das ist, da haben wir schon drüber gesprochen, ja. Ach so. Most responsible job today.
Nee, ik meen dat is de functie.
Ja, das haben wir schon bemerkt. Alles gut, alles gut.
Moment.
Hello, hello. Ah, okay. Yeah. So, hello. I hope you all enjoyed coffee break. Yeah, I did. So, when I was a kid, I always wanted to have superpowers. I think many of you wanted to have. I once asked my girlfriend what she would like to have superpowers, and she said she would like to talk to animals because she would like to talk to her cats, for example. Yeah, that's some superpowers which might not be possible, but there are superpowers which are possible, and those are in TYPO3, and I try to give you those superpowers today. So where does those superpowers come from? They come from a click. Yeah, 5 months ago I released TYPO3 version 13. Yeah, the adoption rate unfortunately is rather less until now. I don't know who of you already tried the new LTS version. Great. Yeah, then you are already more or less engaged to use the new possibilities, but having a short look. Oh, that was a bit too fast. Click back. So I want to show you some version comparison because I found it really interesting. Since the LTS release until now, we had a slight decrease in version 10 and 11, and had a strong decrease in version 12, and only a slight decrease in version 13. Yeah, as I said, that's usual because most of the TYPO3 installations, or a lot of TYPO3 installations, are really big, so it's such an effort to upgrade. We try to make upgrades easier with each version, but we cannot influence how many custom extensions are used, or third-party extensions which are not ready, stuff like that. So unfortunately, only 0.5% of the people out there are able to use the new superpowers. And yeah, we have around 144 new features in the last LTS version. Those are only the features which are somehow documented. There are a lot more features which are maybe some tiny bits we improved. So it makes sense to check the change logs to get a full overview, but also to just dive into the version. Yeah, now I still did not introduce myself, so normally now would be the time when I say at which company and how many pets I have and what do I do in my free time and stuff like that. But today I actually want to click sometime. Does it work? Want to get to know you, so I have a little bit feeling of the audience. So I have prepared some questions, and we'll start with one of the first questions is, who of you types /TYPO3 after every domain he enters in a browser? I don't know. So a short side note to that, with version 13 it's possible to change the backend entry point. So actually I changed all my backend entry points to /vp-admin, so that makes it easier for me. Yeah, you can do that. Another thing is, who of you superpowered their websites with Templar Volar? Oh. Yeah, a side note, I just recently looked in the extension repository and there's still a version available for version 12. So you could still use it. Okay, so yeah, another thing is, which is really common, who of you had yeah, I don't know how to say it, how of you spent around 3 times debugging TypoScript and in the end it was a cache? Okay, great. And the last question is also from my background where I'm working with customers. Who of you or usually throws his Word document directly in the RTE? Nobody? That's great. Okay, so great. So I know the audience a little bit better now. Anyways, I just want to introduce myself in just 6 points. I'm Oliver Bartsch from Augsburg, software engineer at B13. I'm also TYPO3 core developer since around 4 years. 4 years now. Just recently, I joined the TYPO3 product strategy initiative to get the feature development for the next versions to go on. I'm also doing open source work next to TYPO3. I recently attended the FOSDEM in Brussels. If you like open source, I can highly recommend to attend this. Besides all those stuff, I'm also doing some smart home stuff like that, and also cycling and driving car. But yeah, that's enough for me. It's about you today, about the content heroes, master builders, and the code warriors, which want to have some more superpowers. One of the main pain points since years and since versions was the page tree. So I know it from my own experience. I think all of you know it. It's just, it was hard to drag pages. We had TYPO3 versions where you could not resize the page tree. So yeah, installations with a lot of pages and with long names, yeah, was awful. And also, if you are using workspaces, which gets even better in each version, yeah, previously when you had a lot of different workspaces and stages, you had some kind of disco party and a page tree. That was a bit too fast, a bit too much clicky. So with the new version, we have a reactive page tree. That means we throw away all the JavaScript frameworks we introduced in the last 8 years. So there will not be the next JavaScript framework in 1 year which is thrown away, because now the page tree is completely based on web standards, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, only native APIs. So we can rely on that for, I hope, many, many years now. And that also enables us to make a drag and drop API native so that it now works. Finally, you can also drag the page tree. And to not have a disco party in a backend, we introduced labels and status informations, which can be used to highlight pages in a page tree in a new and clean way. So on the left side, you see labels where you can indicate with a color, and when you hover over the node, you get some informations. You can also add status informations. You see that on the right side, for example, there's an icon where you can also place some informations, context specific. Another really cool thing, which I personally enjoy really much, is you can now use the backend and move content elements via the page tree to other pages. So you don't have to copy the content element anymore and then go to another page and paste it there. You can just yeah, drag it into the page tree on the page where you want to have it. So the next thing, the no title issue. So a lot of my customers don't understand that it's not a good idea to don't add a title to elements. they just say, okay, but the title is not shown in the front end. I say, yes, but when you want to search for this element in the back end, you need some kind of title. However, if you have your customers, you brought them to use proper titles, they can search for them, and we improved the search in the back end in various ways. For example, you can know in the page tree, coming back to it, you can search for multiple pages at once. So comma-separated list of UIDs, for example. Yeah, you can filter accordingly. Next thing is you can search in the form manager module for forms. So if you have installations with a lot of forms, you can search for them. And we also improved the global website search. You can also now search for modules. So in case you have a lot of different modules, maybe from third-party extensions, you can search for them, and you also can find workspaces and jump directly into those workspaces. If you're an admin, you saw this in the screencast, you can also go to the corresponding workspace settings. So the night is darkest just before the dawn, as Batman would say. I don't know how many of you use TYPO3 at night. So maybe if you ever used it, yeah, the previous backends were really bright and really shiny. So you don't have to switch your light on. That was also good. But yeah, for the eyes, it may not be the best thing. So now it's possible to work comfortably also in the night when you switch your backend to dark mode. Yeah, I don't know, maybe some of you already switched to the dark mode. We are thinking that further maybe we introduce a matrix, a green, black thing in the next version. No, just joking. But yeah, dark mode is here, and feel free to work at night. Sorry? Yes, yes. A next thing which we improved a little bit is the file list module. So working with files is also, yeah, mostly not the loved task by customers. So we try to also help them. For example, you can select for columns. That's already possible in version 12, but now you can edit exactly those columns which you selected beforehand, so that makes mass editing a lot easier. For example, when you have to add an alternative title to your images because of the new regulations where you have your websites to be accessible, this will help you, I hope. Another thing is when you're a cool kid and you have a lot of YouTube videos which you also upload in your TYPO3 installation, and afterwards you see, oh, okay, I have to change the thumbnail to dark mode because dark mode is much cooler and you get more views then. You can now in your TYPO3 installation actually update those meta information so that you also get the new thumbnail in your TYPO3 installation where you reference the YouTube video. So, exactly. And now I'm a bit sad. I think every one of you were sad when this was gone. The good old save and close button. Yeah, there were much rumors about it. I think there was even an extension bringing just this button back into the backend. But the button will maybe never come back. But what is now possible, you can now use hotkeys. For example, with Command S, you can save every form in the backend. And when you add a shift in between, you can save and close any document in the backend. Yeah. So, bring this together. We got, like I said, a new page tree. We can finally move content via the page tree. We can now work in style when we use the dark mode. We have new hotkeys, which is really cool. I personally use them since they were introduced every day. And we have a better search experience and also improve the file list a bit. So that's for version 13. So you might think, okay, what can we do next? What could be the next step? So one idea could be AI-assisted content creation. So you don't have to do that manually to can just be the proofreader. So you can AI letting you generate content or success you content, and you just have to focus on the really important tasks. Could be an idea. I don't know. It will be. We will see what the future brings. Unless then we have another things to sort of. For example, TYPO3 configuration, which is also for me one of the most annoying things because there are so much different configurations and you have to know all of them, and I don't know, there are so many ways to do things and in the end they just don't work. So we tried to resolve that, to give more superpowers with configuration, and the thing, or yeah, how would we like to do that? It's easy. We would like to do that by saying, okay, less config, more magic. That means when you have to configure less, you can make less mistakes, so more will work, I think, I hope. So in the latest version, we introduced the automatic generation of database fields. So in case you have your TCA right, TYPO3 does all the database column configuration or generation for you, so you can throw away your xtables SQL files, for example. You have also auto-inclusion of tsconfig files. In this case, the user tsconfig file, page tsconfig files were automatically included before. You have an improved auto-detection of services for dependency injection. This is based on interfaces and stuff like that, which are implemented. And you also have support of native PHP features. That means you can use such things like PHP attributes or stuff like that to say a service is kind of that, so have it registered and configured. I will show some examples in a second. So that is already a level up, so in the overall configuration context, but we have also made huge improvements in a specific context called TCA. So TCA is more or less the big array which is used for all kind of forms, for all kind of stuff in the backend. And yeah, TYPO3 tries to read your mind now, almost. So basically, the TCA files shrink down really, really much with the latest version. You have auto-generation of the system columns. That means you don't have to copy-paste the start time, end time, and all those fields in every of your TCA files. This is also done automatically. And we have also the same auto-generation for the show item, so you don't have to do those fields in your show items. So the show item is the array where you define which fields are actually displayed for a type. So for example, a content type for text media, text pic, you define image field should be shown. So, and also you still always had to define the system fields. You don't have to do this anymore, this is automatically done. And the other thing is you have also auto configuration of your TCA types. For example, we have a TCA type file or the TCA type category, and if you use those types, you don't have to do, or you don't have to define really much config anymore, because TYPO3 is doing most of the config for you in the back. And one thing I will add now is the auto registration of the content elements. So that means previously you need to define the content elements in your TCA. And then you had also page tsconfig to make them available in the wizard. You can also throw this page tsconfig away, because if you define them in your TCA, they are also automatically defined in the wizard. Thank you. So every hero needs a plan, and so does TYPO3. What I will say, what I want to say is, there were huge changes in how TCA is processed, is generated. So we will have a short look how this generation flow now works. So basically, first of all, the TCA configurations are loaded from the configurations TCA file. Afterwards, a PC13 event is dispatched, so this can be influenced, or the loaded TCA can be influenced. Afterwards, TYPO3 makes an enrichment. That's the point where the system fields will be added, what I said, so the configuration for start time, end time, and stuff like that. Afterwards, the overrides are loaded. So, for example, if you have your news extension installed and add custom fields, that's the place when this will come in. If those TCA configurations are now together, we can now with TYPO3 get in and say, okay, now we make the migration. That means when we throw away TCA configurations, we have an in-place and live migration of this. So if you don't have the time to change the TCA, we migrate this around two to three versions for you, but notify in the deprecation log about it. The last thing which is done by TYPO3 is preparing TYPO3. This is the step which I told when you, for example, use the type file, then there are the configuration is added, which is needed to have this field work. Afterwards, another event is dispatched, which allows you to throw everything away, which we did for you. So when you will do it on your own, you can make this in the last step, and afterwards the TCA is finalized and is available and is cached, and I will show you a little bit about that later. Because now we just have to talk about another configuration language, if we want to call them so. TypoScript. So it also was still kind of hard to use TypoScript, especially for newcomers. They don't often understand how the connection of TypoScript, PHP, front-end, Fluid, and stuff like that is. It's still quite hard. So we think it's easier to make TypoScript easier than to make extensive documentation. So that's an example of how a page would be configured in TypoScript. So we have the page content object, then we define a Fluid template content object, and then we say, okay, we need some kind of matching for the backend layout, which is selected in the backend and stuff like that. Also define the template paths and stuff like that. And we thought about, okay, making this a little bit easier, reducing that to this kind of configuration with a new content object, which is called page view. And the page view content object just needs the information about templates and all the other stuff, the backend layout resolving, the variables which go into the front end. All that is done automatically for you. You don't have to do this anymore on your own. And not just that this is done for you, you also have more information than before. You have site information, you have site language information, all informations regarding the page, the TypoScript which is used. Everything is available automatically. But that's not the end. We also have a new cool feature which is called record transformation, because you still have the problem that you, or not the problem, but you still have the raw data somehow from the database, and you still had to use a lot of data processors, and that would made this slide beforehand a lot larger in real. So we thought about, okay, we still want to have this short, so we have to do more, and more is the record transformation, which can be used by using a new data processor which is called record transformation. And this data processor actually resolves all your database values, which came from in this case, the database query data processor, resolves all your relations, lazy, so just when you need them, creates record objects, which will I explain later on, and also does not require any additional configuration. So when your TCA is right, which should be right because it's kind of easy to write TCA in the newest version, so then everything is automatically done. You don't have to do anything more to get those records transformed for you for the Fluid template. And we still have this data processing database query where we have to define, okay, we want to have TT content from colpos 0 and stuff like that. This is also a lot of configuration which is added. So we thought about, okay, can we do this even more smaller? And that's the reason why we introduced the page content data processor. The page content data processor tries to reduce that even more by resolving all your content elements based on a backend layout which is used for this page automatically. So basically this is the full TypoScript configuration which you will need to have a completely full page with all content of this page, and the content is structured in the structure like is the same as in the backend. So you have them grouped as for the columns, and not just that you have all that information in the front end, you also have this information resolved using the record transformation. So, and when you have the newest version, the newest patch version, you also have a new event which can be used to add custom transformation to. So when the records are transformed, you can do your custom logic also. But you might ask yourself, okay, how does it actually work? That somehow, because that's a really, I would say, a really easy example with just one column, colpos 0. So what about backend layouts with a lot of columns, a lot of colposes? How is this done? And actually, this is done like page layout improvements, and that's actually the only configuration which gets added in this version. But you want to add this because that's only 2 new keys for your backend layouts. It's one, the identifier. It's a unique identifier for the column, which you use then in the front end to access the content elements of this column. And the other thing is the so-called slide mode, which allows you to define which content is fetched for the page. So the basic is slide, so the content from the current page is fetched. If there's no content, then from the next page, and so on. The other things are collect and collect reverse. So everything is collected from top down or collect reverse from down until the root page. Looking at the configuration, so we have a basic backend layout configuration with one column, the main content area with colpos 0, and then we define the identifier main and the slide mode with collect reverse. In our fluid template, we can then, as I said, directly access those content elements of those columns by just using the variable myContent, which we defined in the data processor with the as, then the main, which is the identifier we defined in the backend layout, and finally we have our records in the records array. And on the records array, we can access every information like we did it before in our content element templates with record header, record body text. And as I already said, we have the record transformation built in, so you don't have to do anything. You can just access record media. And this is actually, in this case, for example, an object storage of media files. So you can paste them in an fmedia view helper and have your images in the front end without doing anything, just 6 lines of TypoScript. This also works in a backend. So if you're using fluid templates for your content element backend previews, there also the record objects are available. Great. So I talked a lot of reduced configuration, but it's still a lot of different configurations at a lot of different places. So the next idea was to somehow bring this all together, so somehow have this bundled. And how did we do this? We introduced a really new superpower called side sets. And side sets are composable pieces of all those configuration stuff. So you can think about boxes where you do or you put your configuration in your dedicated configurations, and then those side set boxes can be used in your site configuration. So you can say this site needs this side set, and this side set then has some small configuration, like one content block, for example, or some site settings where I don't know, the footer page is the impressums page is defined or stuff like that. and all those configurations are just placed in this folder and then automatically discovered and loaded and used. And side sets can depend on each other, so you can say, for example, if you have the Nux extension installed, you can say, okay, I depend on the Nux extension's side sets for this site, so you can use every side set in every site and yeah, make use of this. So as a short sum up, we have a self-building database, so you don't have to define any columns anymore if your TCA is right. You still can. So if you have some special columns, the Xtables SQL is still used. So, but you don't have to. Yeah, you have less config, more action. You have TCA on autopilot. That means you also don't have to do much in TCA to get full out of it. Records on demand, which is my favorite feature because this is really great. You don't have to do anything and have all the relations resolved automatically for you in the front end. As I said, you have layouts which are automatically resolved. You just have to put one template path in your page view configuration, and all the partials, layouts and stuff like that is automatically resolved. And yeah, it's a lot of easier templating. So as for the editors, you might also ask, okay, but what can we do next? What could be on top of that? And a thing which we think about is, what about just letting you drop the content in TYPO3 and do everything as automatically? So that means completely automatic template discovery. So you don't have to define the template part anymore, because this is by convention, or I don't know yet, because it's future, but somehow template auto-discovery, so you don't have to do anything, just place your content in. And best thing would, you don't also not have to define any backend layouts anymore, because you just have a dynamic grid in the backend, so you can just add a column left, a column right, a column on top, and that's automatically resolved in the front end. So you have also less configuration in this regard. But yeah, that's future, and we will see how much and when such cool things can get in. Until then, we need to help our developers, because yeah, I don't know who of you already tried to customize the core. If you do so, basically, I hope it was by using hooks. There are also other things like X classes and stuff like that. However, all those ways are kind of awful, because I don't know how a hook is registered. I don't know which hook exists, because you could not really search for this. Yeah, basically when I search for hooks, I end up in some forums from 2009, mention anything which is not there anymore, but I don't know it. So to get that right, we started, I think, 2 or 3 versions ago by introducing PC13 events. Yeah, they allow you to modify the core without breaking it, because they are object-oriented, they can be used in a structured way, they can be customized during versions, so we can add information, or yeah, so when we have events, we can just add more information. For example, if you say, okay, in this event, it would be cool if I had access to, I don't know, the request object or stuff like that. We can just extend it, and it would not break your installation. And yeah, as I said, it's upgrade safe and fully extendable. And it's also really, really effortless to register. So instead of looking in forums from 2009 how to register this hook, you just need to use a PHP attribute and say, okay, this method is an event listener. So that's it. No extra configuration, just in place configuration by adding a PHP attribute to any method in your class. And then in the argument list, you can define the event which this method should listen on. And in this example, we even use a union type. That means in this method, we listen for both events, both of those TCA generation events I showed you in the TCA flow beforehand. Yeah, that's everything we need to register events or event listeners to customize the core. But the S event listener is not the only attribute. We have a lot more attributes which you can use. You can basically use also all the Symfony attributes because TYPO3 is using a lot of Symfony components, and those components also bring PHP attributes to register the services. You can use them too. For example, the S command PHP attribute. It's not an attribute added by TYPO3, but from Symfony. And we modify a little bit, so we have a modified PHP attribute because in TYPO3 you can also configure whether, for example, a command is schedulable or not. Okay, that's for configuration. I'm done. I think I'm done with configuration because now I want to have real power. We talked about all those TCA simplifications, so you have to write less TCA, but you still have to write TCA, and TCA is still an ugly PHP array, which is really hard to work with, and to somehow overcome this problem, we try to transfer this kind of messy array also in some kind of object-oriented and fully typed structure, and that's why I click, and we introduce the TCA schema. So the TCA schema basically is also, as before, the record object is also an object-oriented way of accessing TCA. It's a read-only API. So that does not mean you can build TCA with it. You can reliably read TCA. And that is in an object-oriented way where you have real types and where you have helper methods and you have all this kind of stuff which helps you and makes your life easier. You have a lot of information which I will show in a second. And you also have information which would not be possible to get when just looking on the array. For example, relations are resolved when you have a select field which is pointing to another table. Those relations are clustered together, so you have the information which relations exist in your system. So one component of the TCA schema are the so-called field types. The field types, okay, then we also have the capabilities, but I will explain the field types beforehand. The field types are the component how you can access the information for a field. So for example, when I have a TT content element, I have, for example, the header field, and with the field type API, you can then first of all, query this field, then you get an object of a field type object, and on that you have a lot of methods. There are general methods like the isRequired method or the getDefaultValue, which will get you the information which is placed in TCA. But there are also dedicated methods which are available for the corresponding TCA types. For example, if you have a link field, you have a method which will give you all the allowed link types which can be configured for this type. And the field types are not equals the TCA type. So for example, the TCA type select can have different field types depending on its configuration. For example, when you have a select field which with a static list, you have another field type as if you use a select with a foreign table, because then you have a relation to another table. So another field type with another options. And the other thing is the capabilities. As you can see, for example, in this code example, we query the capability language, and this is also then an object of a capability object, which has some methods like get the language field, which will then return a field object from the first type, but also a lot of other options. So basically capabilities are the object-oriented way of accessing TCA control options. Okay, all right. So I already talked about the record object when we had the record transformation. Too much click, okay, so we missed the other slide. However, I will just talk about the cool features of the record object, and they are also the object-oriented access to the informations to the record. They have computed and system properties in place, so you can access for example, the version UID when you have a translated record, or you can access the user which created the record and stuff like that. Is all bundled or all available in the record. And also really cool is based on the TCA schema, a record object just contains the fields which are actually relevant for this record type. For example, when you have a content element, text media content element, then you have other fields when you just have a header field, header content element, because there's, for example, no media field in the header content element, and then it's not in the record, making this a lot smaller. But you also have the record object is small. Is already small because you have lazy loading. That means, as I said before, the relations, for example, the media relations, the file references, are loaded just when you need them, just when you access this information, not beforehand. And you always have the possibility to access the raw database values if you need them. So how does that look in code? We have our record object, and then we have a lot of methods. So, for example, we can access the get UID. With get UID, we can access the UID of the record. With the get record type, we would, for example, get the information back that this is a text media record type. There are also methods like get main type, which would return TT content, for example. With the get method, we can access every property of this record, in this case, for example, the assets. And we can also, as I said, get the system properties and also the community properties of this record. And the same is for the fluid template. It's exactly the same. We can access all those informations also directly in the fluid template, the same way as we would do it in PHP. So that was all really cool, and now I have one final really annoying thing which we finally did. Is the file handling of XBase. So for the last, I don't know how many years, file handling in XBase was really a mess. Everybody does it in another way. I think there was some kind of implementation from Helmut Hummel, which was good, which was also used a lot, but mostly people did file uploads and stuff like that in XBase on their own. And then they had to think about security. They had to think about, how can I clean up the files which were uploaded? I don't know how I'm allowed to say that, but there were some occurrences where I saw installations where I could access inquiries and all those stuff by just guessing the paths. So yeah, all that is not that cool. So TYPO3 has a solution for this now in the latest version. It's called the XBase built-in file upload and deletion API. Security by default, that means there is validation of the file size, of the file type, of the MIME type, all is built in. Automatic cleanup of files, so they are removed when they're not used anymore. And you also have direct implementation for the FAL API, so you can actually work with the uploaded files the same way which you would work when you have them queried, for example, from the database. So a short sum up, what we have got, we got a lot of new PSA13 events. We replaced more or less most of the hooks in TYPO3. There are some hooks still in the data handler, and so in those areas which you basically don't want to touch. We have the PHP attributes, which makes it really easy to tag services and to have them auto-registered. The really new cool tool, TCA schema, to access TCA in a, I would say, future-proof way. You have the record object, which finally allows you to just work with records without having any processing done by yourself. You have the XBase file handling, so no more do it your own upload nightmares. And finally, there are a lot more APIs which I don't have the time to present you today, but which can be explored by you by, for example, looking at the changelogs. So, and also for this part, what could be the future? The future in this regard is really easy. The idea is have less code, have more done. So we are still improving the APIs, trying to make smarter tools, smarter APIs. So you have to do less, to get more. And but TYPO3 is still evolving. We have U supercharged with the newest version, but we are still in development, or we are already in development for the next version. So now is your chance to get your voice heard, to get your features in. So don't hesitate, go on Forge, submit your feature ideas. So the time is now. But remember, with great power comes great responsibility, and in doubt, you can contact me at these platforms. Thank you. I saw some question.
Wait.
With the record objects.
Yes.
Does that mean that you could, in theory, not need to use a domain model anymore?
Basically, if you have your TCA properly, you don't need this because, you have the relations resolved automatically.
All right, because in all the examples I saw, I didn't see one example to get actually the value of the record, like because I saw like get like the UID or something. And
so you mean you want to have, for example, get assets, or you iterate over assets and then you have a get UID on that?
No, let's basically say it's a text field or something. Can you get the value then directly out of it?
Sorry, I didn't.
Suppose it's just a simple input field, a text field.
Yes.
You can directly access it then without.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, you would need some kind of model if you would like to have additional getter, also not just the value. So you would have some kind of pre-processing of this value before you get it. Then you do have to do this manually. But then you can use the, like I said, the PC13 event for the transformation. So you can hook in and say, okay, for these fields I need this pre-processing for the transformation. But basically, you don't need any model. Models are also just XBase specific, and this thing is kind of core thing, so it's working next to XBase.
All right, thank you.
For content blocks, when it says content blocks, you don't have an XBase model.
Exactly.
And that's perfect.
Yeah, I have to say thank you for this. I have to say most of the record transformation and TypoScript optimizations and template optimizations are coming from the content blocks initiative. So as you all know, we did not add content blocks in TYPO3 core in the latest version. It's still a separate extension, but most of the underlying functionality is built into core, so it can seamlessly integrate it.
All right, Oliver, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a nice present for you.
Thank you.
Or maybe for your girlfriend, I don't know.
Yeah. All right.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Da hast du ja die Daten. Genau. Da braucht man jetzt nicht wissen, durch das Lane-Loading dann wahrscheinlich sogar noch effizienter als hier dieses Lane-Loading. Ja gut, aber dann lädst du halt gleich kleinere Resultsets irgendwie speichern. Ne? Hast nicht den Kant, das Caching oder Fetching, was auch immer die Daten reinspeichern.
Wussten ja noch nicht mal so.
Machen wir jetzt.
Ja, machen wir das. Ja, aber ich glaube, die sammeln uns solche Page-Listen in irgendwelchen Testfeldern in den Pages, damit wir weniger Lust auf die Daten machen müssen. Das stimmt. Relevant war, das ist auch total, glaube ich. Oder ja welche jungen Entwickler heute Ja, tatsächlich. Das ist also das ist jetzt ich habe ja letztes Wochenende für 5 oder 10 Projekte bei uns da hat man schon gemerkt, dass die Ich würde niemanden formulieren, smarte Funktionen bei MyCandidate zum Beispiel. Ich habe einen Text für MyCandidate geschrieben lassen. Kann ich dir mal zum Lesen geben, der ist echt geil. Und ich habe das im Endeffekt so gemacht, ich habe einen alten Referenzseiten gemacht, einmal da unten geklickt, habe den als Kontext in den Prompt für OpenAI Arbeit geschrieben, mache daraus einen coolen Referenztext, kopiere das irgendwie ganz geil und da sind echt coole Texte dabei rausgekommen. Ne?
Die armen Leute, die Journalistik studiert haben und alle Texte haben.
Da habe ich mit uns vor einem halben Jahr oder 30 Jahren schon
All right, hello everyone. It's great to be here, my first time at Camp Venlo, and you've all been very kind to me, so that's great. Today I'm going to talk about AI, the impact of AI on software engineering, and how you can make sure to stay relevant in this age of AI. And now maybe you're here in the room thinking, what is this guy talking about? Why would I not be relevant anymore? Or maybe you've been reading the news, all the AI news lately, and you've started feeling a little bit depressed, thinking, oh my God, we're doomed. We're all going to get replaced by AI. And I've noticed this is quite a bit of a dividing topic. I see people who are really on the pro-AI end of the spectrum that feel like AI is magic and can do all these useful things, and surely software engineers will not be needed anymore anytime soon. And on the other end of the spectrum, I see a lot of people who are a lot more skeptical. You know, the AI haters. You know, some people even call the AI models that we have today billion-dollar bullshit generators. Now, I'm actually very curious where you all are on this spectrum. So, who of you thinks that AI will replace software engineers in the coming year? And that could be partially for certain kinds of applications. Who thinks that AI will replace software engineer in the next year? Please raise your hand. I see a couple of hands. Can I ask you, why do you feel that way?
Because lower tasks in software engineering will be done by AI, because when you use your Visual Studio Code with Copilot, it's done by now.
Yes.
So that will happen. It happens now.
So you mean like smaller tasks, part of the larger picture, will be done by AI? Okay, interesting. And who thinks that in 2 or 3 years' time, software engineers will be replaced by AI? Maybe even completely replaced. I also see some hands going up there. What about you? Maybe you can share?
Yeah, because as you can see, the AI is... So because the AI is still developing, and what we see now is just the beginning. So we cannot make a certain prediction on what will happen in 2 years, because now results are still quite impressive, even using the Copilot or other AI assistants. So we don't know what to expect, therefore...
Expect the unexpected.
Exactly.
All right, and who's on the other end of the spectrum? So who is very skeptical about AI replacing software engineers? I see over there. Can you share maybe why that is?
Yeah, sure. Because I prepared for my presentation and I asked ChatGPT to give me an example of an before and after code, and I don't know who attended my presentation. We introduced a TCA schema API, which is a read-only API, and ChatGPT just introduced a write API and told me that there is an API in TYPO3 where you can write TCA, which is basically completely nonsense. So I don't think that AI will replace software engineers.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for sharing. As I said, there's a big spectrum, and I see the spectrum here as well, right? Some people are very optimistic about the future of AI. Other people are more skeptical. Now, wherever you are on this spectrum, my goal for today is to inspire you to think about what AI can do for you and what AI means for you in the future and your job. Let's have a look at a little bit of media coverage around the impact of AI on software engineering. Back in October, Google CEO Sundar Pichai shared that already 25% of all the code at Google is generated by AI. And let me put this into context for you, because 25% may not sound like a lot, but 25% at the scale of Google means that 100 million lines of code per year just at Google is generated by AI. Now, if we should believe this number or not, I'll leave that up to you. But even if it's half true, that's still a huge amount of code that is already generated by AI. Difficult to say. They promote that it's 25% of code that is generated and then reviewed and accepted by engineers. So engineers are still in the process. But yeah, these are the numbers they are putting out, 25%. Now, we also have headlines like these. This is the NVIDIA CEO that says we shouldn't teach children how to code anymore. We should leave that up to AI. And we have reputable newspapers like the New York Times that say it's the end of computer programming as we know it. Also, this guy, Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Meta, Facebook, recently shared on a podcast that he expects that Meta will have, probably in 2025, an AI that can act on the level of a mid-level engineer. So they will have an AI-based mid-level engineer that can write code. So I think the question really is, how do you stay relevant in this day and age and with all this AI developments going on? There are huge investments being made into AI, and a lot of those investments are really focused as well on code generation, writing code, and thus potentially replacing software engineers. So I feel like that we as software engineers should really start thinking critically now how we can make sure to stay relevant in this age of AI. I'm going to dive into that in just a minute, but first let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Pascal Widdershoven. I'm a software engineer and architect. I've been for a long time. I've been in this industry for about 20 years. And these days I'm CTO at Cabisa. Cabisa is a strategic IT consulting firm. We help our customers develop digital products and digital business models. We have a community of 50 IT professionals that we lovingly call digital artisans. And we work for customers such as ASML, Signify, Hertec, which is the market leader in fire safety systems, and APG, which is a large pension administrator in the Netherlands. And they execute or administer the pension of a lot of their large pension funds. Now, as a CTO, it's my job to look at the future and make sure that we as a company stay relevant and we adapt to changing market needs. So obviously the question, what does AI mean for software engineering, is one I get a lot. And I've noticed that some people have really started to get nervous and feel unsure about their future and their job, which is what inspired me to give this talk. Now, there are 4 main topics that I want to talk about today. First, I would like to talk about what software engineering really is. And this might sound strange, given that probably most of you are software engineers, but I've noticed that there are wildly different views about what the job of a software engineer is. So that's why I feel like it's important to talk about that first. Then second, I want to talk about what AI can already do for you today in software engineering. And this is the most dangerous part of the presentation for me, because this stuff changes every week. Not even JavaScript frameworks change this fast. But in any case, these are things that you can already apply tomorrow if you haven't already. Then third, I want to look at the future of software engineering and AI. What could a potential future of AI and software engineering look like? And last, I want to come back to the original question, bring it all together, and see and give you my recommendations on how to stay relevant with all this AI stuff going on. So, what is software engineering really? You know, there's this joke that says software engineering is converting a Jira ticket into code, or turning caffeine or coffee into code, but not so fast. This is Mike. Mike is a software engineer. This is actually what a software engineer looks like according to ChatGPT. And Mike's job is a lot more than just writing code. And in fact, there has been research looking into how much time engineers on average spend writing code. And I'm curious what your experience are in this area. So how much time do you think that engineers on average spend writing code? I'm going to read these options in just a second, and if you feel like that's the answer, then please raise your hand. Who thinks that software engineers on average spend more than 85% of their time writing code? If you feel that's the answer, then please raise your hand. Okay, that's nobody. Who thinks that engineers on average spend more than 50% of their time writing code? If you think that's the answer, then please raise your hand. Still no hands? One hand? No? If you think that engineers spend more than 25% of their time writing code, please raise your hand. Yes, see quite a lot of hands. And if you feel like engineers spend less than 25% of their time writing code, okay, that seems to be the majority. Now, I consider the answers B, C, and D correct because research shows that it's between 15, and 60%. That's quite a big range. For the sake of simplicity, let's average it to 42. But in any case, whatever the exact number is, it shows that we do a lot of things that are not writing code. And let's have a look at Mike's calendar. So this might look familiar to you. There's a daily stand-up, there's a bi-weekly sprint demo, we need to do code reviews and testing, we have a meeting scheduled with the business to discuss requirements of a new upcoming feature, we need to debug production issues, there's a pair programming session in the calendar with Alice, the new intern, to teach her about test-driven development. We have knowledge sharing sessions, we have architecture advisory forums where we come together with a lot of architects to discuss architectural topics. Of course, we are all DevOps teams these days, right? So we build and rerun our software in production. So Mike's on standby for production support on Tuesday. And of course, let's not forget, we are going to do a deployment on Friday afternoon because what could potentially go wrong? Now let's be clear. Where it says coding in the calendar, it's still not just writing code. It's reading documentation and specifications. It's thinking about how are we going to implement this feature? How are we going to fit it into the current code base? Make sure that it is readable and maintainable, not just by me, but also my colleagues. We're trying things out, wondering why things don't work the way we thought they would work. We're going back and forth with the product owner to hash out some functional requirements that were missed during the backlog refinement. You need to do maintenance, write documentation, and so forth. The point I'm trying to make is that software engineering is so much more than just writing code. And what separates good from bad engineers, or good from great engineers, is not their ability to produce code. It's not about producing 2 times as much lines of code per day, but it's about effectiveness. It's about solving the right problems, moving things forward. Excuse me. Moving things forward and being effective. I'm sorry. Because that, if you ask me, is the job of a software engineer. We solve human and business problems, and we use software to do it. Now let's have a look at what AI can already do for us today in software engineering. I've divided this into 4 main categories, and the first one is AI copilots. Now, AI copilots, they come in many shapes and forms. Unfortunately, none of them look like this yet. But they exist even outside of software engineering already today. So, for example, in Office 365, there's Microsoft Copilot that can help write prose in Word. It can generate slides in PowerPoint, and it can help you generate functions in Excel. But here I'm going to focus mainly on AI copilots that are helping in software engineering. And the first one is GitHub Copilot. GitHub Copilot was actually one of the first AI-assisted development tools. And when it came out, it was quite simple. It provided mainly AI-based autocomplete. So you would write the name of a function, or you would write a comment that would describe the code you wanted, and Copilot would generate the code for you. Usually that would be up until the function level, so it could generate an entire function for you, or sometimes a part of it. But that's how it started. And later on, they added more functionality. So now there's also GitHub Copilot Chat. And then you get a Copilot, an AI chat in your editor that knows a little bit about the context of your code base. It can read files in your code base. It can look at your project structure. And you can ask it questions about your code base. So you can give it a piece of code, and it will explain to you how it works. You can also ask it to, for example, generate unit tests for your implementation. So it's really kind of a pair programmer, kind of a virtual colleague that is embedded into your editor. At Cabisa, we've been using Copilot for a long time. Basically, ever since it came out, we started using it. And it has added quite some value, but at the same time, we feel that by now, Copilot has been surpassed by a few other tools. And those tools, at least 3 of those, are Windsurf, Cursor, and Aider. And these are basically tools that are similar to Copilot, but they take the ideas of Copilot and they turn it up a notch. Now, what separates them mainly is that these tools, they integrate lots deeper into your code base, so they make an entire index of your code base. Excuse me. They make an entire index of your code base, and as such, they know a lot more about your code base. Also, these tools are what they call agentic. You can give them an assignment that is larger than just generating a piece of code. And what they will do is they will create a plan. You can approve the plan, and then it will start executing that plan step by step. So for example, you can ask it to implement a feature, and it will say something like, okay, I'm going to add this dependency, I'm going to create this file, I'm going to modify these and these files, and every step of the way it's going to show you what it's going to do. And you as a developer are still in control, because every step, if it's going to run a command, you need to approve it. And if it's going to change or write code for you, it will show you a div of the code that it has changed or will change. Now, Cursor and Windsurf are both VS Code forks. They come with a subscription model, so you buy the subscription, and they come with the models included. Aider, on the other hand, is a command line tool that is a bring your own model tool, which is on the one hand a little bit less convenient, because it means that you need to have API access, for example, to OpenAI or to Claude. But then the benefit is that you can use it with any kind of model you want. It even supports models running locally on your computer. What I also really like about Aider is that it supports a mode where it can use 2 AI models, and then it will use one reasoning model as the architect. So basically you use a model like OpenAI O1 or O3 or DeepSeek R1, a model that is really good at reasoning, and Aider will use it to come up with that plan. So if you ask it a question to implement a certain feature, it will use that reasoning model that is a bit slower, but it's very good at reasoning, to come up with a plan. How can I approach this? And then it uses a cheaper model, for example, GPT-4o or Claude 3.5 Sonnet, to do the actual code generation. And that's a really effective way to use different kinds of models and use their strengths to combine, get the best result. So if you look at the benchmarks, then you see that there's this combination of a reasoning model to come up with a plan and a coding model to generate the code. These combinations, they score the highest on all the benchmarks. I have a movie here showing Windsurf in action. What you will see here is that the user asks Windsurf to basically reorganize the project. So we have CSS files and React components, and it asks Windsurf to separate those into separate directories. And what you can see is that that's the question the user asked of Windsurf. Windsurf is going to make a plan. It's going to tell you, okay, I'm going to do this and that. These are the terminal commands I'm going to use to move these files around. You approve it, and then it says, now that these files are moved, I also need to update import statements. So I'm going to look at all the files that I just moved, see if there are any import statements in there, and then I'm going to update those files as well, and you can see the diff of what it has done. So you can imagine if you do this on a large project, this can really be a big time saver. Here's another example. Here, the human writes documentation on an integration test, and then it says to Windsurf, please continue what I was doing, add documentation in the same style and in the same way that I just did, now do it for all the other integration tests. And then you see that Windsurf is smart enough to start looking at the project, looking up all the integration tests, and it's going to add documentation in the same style. All right, so let's move on to the next category, which is AI agents. Now, what an AI agent is, there's no real one definition, but AI agents are generally AI tools that can interact with their environment. So in the case of coding AI agents, they oftentimes have access to a web browser, they have access to your file system, they can create files, they can run commands, they can read the output of commands, so they interact with their environment. That's one characteristic of AI agents. Another one is that they can carry out larger tasks. So this is not just how to complete this single function, but it's really about getting an objective and doing anything that is needed to reach that objective. So the example that we just saw with Windsurf, we gave it a larger objective, and it's going to perform tasks. It's going to look at the output, so there's a kind of a loop. It's doing something, it looks at the result, then it concludes, okay, there's an error message, I need to fix this error message, and And it's really going to take these multiple steps, interact with its environment until it has basically completed the task. I have an example of that as well. Let's see, this is Open Devon. I think it's called All Hands now. I sped up the movie a little bit. The details are not so important, but basically what you see here is that the human asks a single question. I think it's something like, I want to analyze data with some kind of Python library, and Devon is going to do basically all the work. It's going to add the dependency, it's going to run a terminal command, there are some error messages, and it's looking at the messages. It's making all the changes until it has achieved what the user asked it to do. Then you can ask follow-up questions, and you continue that way, and you see that the agent is really semi-autonomously executing the tasks. Oh, and there are some other similar tools coming. So this was All Hands Open Devon, which is an open source solution. There's also Devon, which was the first AI programmer that was released about a year ago. It made a big splash on social media. And also GitHub is also working on a feature that is very similar to this. It's called GitHub Copilot Workspace. And it's basically this idea, but then integrated into GitHub. So you would then be able to create a GitHub issue, describe, for example, a bug that occurred, or describe a user story, and then in the background, a copilot from GitHub will start working on this issue. It will first comment on the issue. It will show the plan, how it's going to approach it. You can, go back and forth a little bit to tweak the approach, and then it's going to work in the background, open a pull request where you can review the code and then accept it. Now, the third category is AI chat. I would almost say good old AI chat, because AI chat is actually what brought the big revolution of AI, the big breakthrough back in 2022. And I find that AI chat still provides a surprising amount of value. I use AI chat a lot with Claude and ChatGPT. And just to give you a few examples, I use it a lot to brainstorm. So for example, if I can ask ChatGPT or Claude, this is a topic I want to tell something about or I need to think about. Can you please give me a few suggestions of how this could be useful? Or this is what I'm thinking. Can you please critically review what I'm thinking and suggest some alternatives, for example? And I find that many times, it's not perfect, but many times it gives me very interesting ideas that I can then explore further. You can also use it, for example, to compare different approaches. Just this week, I was comparing the pricing models of the AWS API Gateway and API Management in Azure. Documentation is quite bad or spread out over many different pages. So I asked Claude, can you please give me a comparison between these two tools? And it helpfully puts it in a table where you can easily see how these tools compare. Another one is generating scripts to automate simple tasks. I don't know how about you, but in the past I've spent countless hours writing scripts to automate simple tasks. In many cases, probably it would have been faster to do the task by hand. But you know how it goes. If you're a software engineer, then all the problems you see can be solved with software. But nowadays, I just let ChatGPT write those scripts for me, because oftentimes it's very easy to describe what the script should do, and then ChatGPT can easily bang out a little script that does exactly what you want. And just to give you a concrete example, the other day I had to document the tables in a Postgres database, so I needed to get a basically markdown output that would list every table in the database with all the columns and their types. And at first I was thinking, oh, these are only, 50 tables or so, I will write it myself. And then 10 seconds later I thought, no, I will just ask ChatGPT to do this. So I said what I wanted to achieve, and it generated a Python script that connects to the Postgres database and outputs Markdown. So 5 minutes later, not even, I had this script that would have taken myself probably a couple of hours if I had to write it, and it was done in 5 minutes. So very, very helpful. But you can use it in any kind, in a lot of other examples as well. For example, you can use it to generate mock data or to generate documentation. You can put a piece of code into ChatGPT and explain how it works. You can use it really in many different ways, and I find it adds really a lot of value. Now, the fourth category is AI product features, and what I mean by that is that you can also, of course, use AI to add AI features to your applications. And this is actually pretty simple because all of these tools are really just APIs, and we've all integrated APIs a million times before. So that's very easy, but of course the hard part is in doing it in a responsible way, right? Because these models, they are non-deterministic, they can hallucinate, right? So they can give incorrect outputs. So this is actually where the hard part is. Integrating it is simple, these are just APIs, but you really have to think how you can safely implement this into your applications. Now, to give you a couple of concrete examples, one example I really liked is in customer service applications. You can basically summarize all the past interactions that a customer had with the customer service. And then when somebody calls the customer service, the agent can, the person, I mean, answering the phone, they can already see, okay, this is this customer, these are all his past interactions, and you get a nice summary. You can even include their billing status, whatever, but basically every information, all the information you have about this customer, you can nicely summarize it in a concise summary for the agent to read, so that they exactly know who this person is that is calling you, and they can help them better. Another example is you can use it to generate content. Of course, these are large language models. They are very good in dealing with text and content. And a nice example I heard a while back is a risk management software. They help companies in managing risk, right, and getting certifications and seeing what the company needs to do in order to be compliant with a certain certification. So these tools, they already know a lot about the company, they know about the certification the company is looking to get, and they use AI to generate potential risks for that company based on their profile and the certification they want to get. And this is actually where the hallucination is quite useful, because it needs to be creative in a sense. It needs to look at the information of the company, it needs to look at the certification you want to get, and it can help you identify potential risks. And it's not a complete solution, right? I mean, if you really want to make sure that you've covered all the risks, I would still advise you to talk to an expert, but at least this can help you into the right direction and give you some ideas of where to look at. Yeah, and of course here the possibilities are endless. You just really need to look into this and be creative. The possibilities are really huge. Now let's have a look at the future of software engineering with AI. I think that if there's one thing that we can expect from AI, or that we can expect AI to change, is how we write code. And if you look at the history of software engineering, then it has been one of rising levels of abstractions. We went from machine code to assembly, to Fortran, to C, to Java, to Python, and basically along that trajectory, the level of abstraction kept rising. So we don't have to worry about memory management anymore. We don't have to malloc and free our memory. We don't have to put line numbers in front of every line of code we write anymore. We don't even have to write HTTP servers. We don't have to write block engines or CMSs. We can use everything that's there. It's all levels of abstraction. And I expect that with AI, that level of abstraction will continue to rise. So I expect that in the future, instead of writing code character by character, we will write a code line by line, or function by function, class by class, or maybe even higher levels of abstraction. Even higher levels of abstraction. Some people think that English will be the main language that we will use to code in the future. I doubt that this is the case, because natural language or English is very ambiguous, and we need to be very precise in what we want our software to do. So if there's only so much detail you can leave away, right? So if you are very concise in your specifications, if you use English terms, then we will not be precise enough, and then the risk of not getting what you want is huge. So I believe that English will not be the way that we express the specifications of our software, but I expect that we will continue to be using code, because it needs to be very specific. I also expect that AI will have a big impact on learning and the value of having certain specific knowledge. So for example, knowing the syntax of a programming language by heart, or all the methods in a library, that's not so important anymore if the AI can help you generate that. But with the AI generating code for us, it becomes more and more important that we understand how we can describe to an AI model what kind of code we want to have. But it does pose an interesting challenge, because how do we teach new developers if they're not writing code from scratch, right? How do we get new developers to get the right insights if they are never writing code from scratch? Historically, that's what juniors use to become more efficient. So this is quite a difficult problem to solve. I don't have the answer how we can solve this, but it is something that we need to be aware of. If companies are trying to replace juniors by AI, then at some points we will not have any seniors anymore, because they need to be taught and they don't pop up out of thin air. Now, there's also another interesting risk that was recently described by papers, and it's called metacognitive laziness. And it comes from relying on AI so much that we stopped critically thinking ourselves. And I don't know how about you, but I've definitely found myself already sometimes reaching for ChatGPT to get a quick answer, only to realize that if I've used my own brain for a couple of seconds, I would have gotten the answer as well. So this is really something that we need to be aware of. We need to keep these brains of ours engaged. Empathy, with AI assessing us more and more, I think that the need for empathy will also increase, because software is only as good as it helps its users to achieve what they need to do. And this requires a deep understanding of human wants and needs. And with AI freeing up some of our time, I think there's actually an opportunity to make the software even better, because we will have more time to spend with end users and understand how we can use software to make their lives even better. And I think this is an area where people will have an edge over AI for a long time to come, and maybe even forever. Now we're back at the original question on how to stay relevant. We've talked about what software engineering really is. It's much more than just writing code. In fact, writing code is just a small part of it. And now don't get me wrong, writing code is a very important part of our job. Because writing good code that solves human problems is valuable, but getting to writing that good code takes a lot of the other things that we saw, and it takes really a lot of experience to build a system in a way that is sustainable, adaptable, and doesn't break with every change you try to make. Now we've seen what AI tools can do for us today. AI tools are good at doing what we humans have done before, but they can do it faster. And AIs don't need breaks. We've also seen that these AI tools, they are mainly focused on the inner loop, right? So what happens when we sit behind the computer. Now we've also looked at the future of AI and software engineering. AI will no doubt change how we code. The level of abstraction will keep rising. Some things will become easier, but also a lot of things will become harder, because we will need additional skills to learn how to effectively work together with AI. Now, my advice to you to stay relevant is to focus on mastering the underlying principles of software engineering. So rather than worrying about being replaced by AI, invest all your time and energy into becoming a great problem solver and learn everything and anything you can about architecture, software design, business, and data. Historically, the most effective software engineers have not been the fastest typists, but those who could identify the right problems to solve. And this isn't to diminish the value of writing code, because code will continue to be the language through which we express our ideas and solutions, even if AI increasingly helps to generate it. The real challenge and opportunity lies in maintaining a deep understanding of what that code does and how it works. We as humans, we need to remain in control. Now, if you listen closely to what I'm saying, you might notice that most of my advice is not really specific about AI. In fact, this would have been my advice 10 years ago for anyone looking to make more impact as a software engineer. Now, I understand that my advice may not be popular to everyone, because many developers take pride in writing code. However, as AI becomes more powerful, the humans that can leverage this technology to enhance their problem-solving capabilities will be the ones who thrive. The risk of getting surpassed by people using AI effectively is much larger than being replaced by AI itself. So I would also like to encourage you to explore what AI can do for you today. To use it to generate ideas, brainstorm, explain code, troubleshoot issues. Just try to find ways where it can add value for you and free you up to focus more on the strategic and human-centric parts of the craft. Now let me leave you with a timeless reminder by Charles Darwin. It's not the strongest of species that will survive, nor the most intelligent, but the ones most responsive to change. So embrace change, adapt continuously, and not only you will remain relevant, but you will be the ones shaping the future of our industry. Thank you. I think, Edward, we have some time for questions.
Of course.
Are there any questions? Or remarks? Over there?
So essentially the advice is to go a bit beyond being just the person who writes the code.
Yes, exactly.
So also like looking at the business itself, if dealing with such, and managing people. So getting more skills than required.
No, I wouldn't call it getting more skills than required, but I do think that in general, even, like I said, even before AI, this was already true in my opinion. Software engineers should not just be people who write code, but should be people who solve business and human problems. And of course, we use code to do that, but I think those software engineers that can look beyond the code and look at the actual end users, what is needed, also look at the business, and just be great problem solvers, those, in my opinion, are the best software engineers. And I think that if you look at the developments in AI, it's very difficult to predict what exactly will happen. But it's safe to assume that it will have impact on how we do our jobs, and the largest impact will probably be in writing the code, but all the things around it, that's really just human work that requires empathy and understanding of humans. So I think that's safest to put all your time and energy in. I think that gives you the biggest leverage.
So essentially be more Thank you for nice timing. So essentially being more human and focusing on problem solving, right? And not just the solving of the problems, but identify the problem,
yes,
focus on solving the problem, and make sure that the person who you solve the problem for feels good about it.
Yeah, exactly. That's a nice summary. But also, don't get me wrong, right? The code is still the way through which we express these solutions, right? So we need to be able to understand the code that is generated by AI. So that is maybe where I'm a little bit of two minds, right? On the one hand, I'm saying, okay, you should focus on all these things that are not writing code. But on the other hand, we need to make sure that we can still understand, all the code that is being written. So you need to focus on both, but I would put the most of my attention on the things that are not writing code.
Okay, thank you.
Any other remarks or questions? All right, then, thank you again.
Okay, Pascal. Yes, thank you very much for being here and your overview in the changing world of with AI. Thank you very much. And
yes, thank you. Thank you all.
See you next time.
Yes.
So thank you. We will start in 15 minutes. We start with the last session over here in this area here. So see you in 15 minutes.
Poeh, gaat een beetje.
Und die hat, genau, die Firma ist Really this one.
So everyone, this is not a test. This is the beginning of the end. We are starting in 5 minutes. It is time to move into the hall and find a place to sit down. Please come in and find your seat. Bring your drinks, bring your food, bring your popcorn.
Check, 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 check. Yep.
We have a well, I'm going to see this. Okay. Anywhere in between. Okay. Say it again? No. Oh, you're okay.
And the mystery begins. It's time to sit down in your seats. Find your seat, find your soul, find your popcorn.
Okay, we're very Swiss about time, German about regulations, and Dutch about truth.
Everybody look like I'm saying something really important. Yeah. And now everybody laughed like I said something hilarious.
Fantastic.
The doors are closed.
The doors are closed, everyone. We're ready for the last event of today, if you don't count the dinner and the party and the photo session and
the Midwald after party.
Exactly. Which, by the way, is in a secret location close to the train station. It says welcome up there. Dutch is the language that is spelt strangely. Danish is the language that is pronounced strangely. And I will try to keep to English, just to make things clear for everyone. So, this is a really special occasion for me. I have a little bit of feedback, if you can fix that. We have very, very little time, which is why I tried to get you all in here. But we're going to manage as much as we can in 45 minutes, okay? You're all ready? Yeah? Let's go. Okay. So, I was at a fantastic Dutch event called Drupal Jam last year, and at Drupal Jam I was in a panel much like this one, just that we were sitting on bar stools and not chairs, and it was about open source and how it can survive. And someone in that talk said that, well, we have to take away some of the open source freedoms so that we can earn money with open source. And I didn't have the arguments ready. I was like, I know that's wrong, but I don't know what to say. And then I went to WordCamp Europe, and I was saved. Hallelujah! By Juliette here. And, I mean, Juliette is really special. She is the maintainer of PHP Code Sniffer. Yeah, big hand, everyone. But although you might think so, that applause does not pay her rent. And that's why we're here today. We are going to talk about open source sustainability. Yeah? We're in a panel today, but first let's talk about what Jam and I talked about a year ago here, which is that, yeah, we thought open source won, right? But still, big commercial proprietary software vendors can come in there and take away, for example, what Drupal had in Australia. They have been based on a wonderful self-built, homemade Drupal government package that Adobe came in there and they said, well, Drupal doesn't have DXP, do they? We have DXP. It just turned out that what the Australian government in the end spent 35 million building was illegal in Australia because of privacy laws. So, having some locals in there is a really good idea. And
Here's where you play the ironic song in for a second on the social media clip.
Yeah, exactly. And that brings me to this very nice map of the UK, which really shows how open source can change things. The UK government supplier map for IT before they decided to prioritize open source. Well, what happened afterwards? You get lots of things happening in your country when you bring in open source, right? So, hey, we thought open source was great. We know that it's great. It brings democracy, it brings civil society, peaceful coexistence, all of those kind of things, and it brings financial independence. And, yeah, we still meet stuff like this, which is actually Juliette's slide from WordCamp Europe, which she did together with Jos de Valk, the Joost guy. And people really don't understand how open source works, right? We know that it's good for civil society and democracy and international cooperation, and it's redefining international aid, and it's an economy of plenty and not scarcity. And the problem is that it doesn't actually work when you try to apply Western societal ways of monetization on open source. It's sort of not the capitalist dream where the more installations you get, the more money you get, right?
Right. The CEO there was saying, hey, if you guys are stupid enough to put it out for free, then thanks. And I don't need to pay for it, do I?
Yeah, right. And I heard I was in Brussels and I heard someone say that, with open source, Yeah. We're kind of addicted to innovation, right? We have to think about maintenance. Maintenance costs money. Okay, that's the very quick introduction here. First, let's go to Juliette. Who are you? 60 seconds.
I'm Juliette Folmer. You've already heard I'm a maintainer of Code Sniffer. I'm self-employed and I work full-time in open source and I maintain about 20 other projects.
And we're out of order, so it's actually him first. Jam made the slides here, it wasn't me. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. Hello, my name is Emiel Brok. I am working for SUSE, as you might have guessed from the apparel here. But I'm also representing the DOSBA, the foundation that we are setting up for gathering all the open source companies in the Netherlands. DOSBA is Dutch Open Source Business Alliance. And within SUSE, I am open source ambassador.
All right, the name is Fabrice Mous. I work at Nextcloud, a company providing a collaboration platform, working there for 3 years. The first 2 years I was active within international marketing in our team. And at the beginning of this year I'm responsible for the Benelux market, which is very exciting at the moment. My history, background in open source, so that started in 2000, so that makes me a bit of an old fart. I'm reviving a little bit of an old love here as well. I was part of the KDE project, so part of the core team, and also together with Emiel we did LPI. We founded the Dutch LPI community, the association, the Stichting Foundation. And how do I want to close this off? Yes, it's a fun ride with Nextcloud. Lots of stuff is happening, adventure, and I'm happy to be here with all of you, and I hope to see you later on with the drinks. Thank you.
Hi everybody, I'm Lenny Moskalyk and I am working for the Drupal Association. I've been with Drupal community for over 10 years now, and among other things, at the moment I am a delivery manager for the DA, as well as one of the advisory board members for DrupalCon Europe, and I am part of the leadership team for the Drupal CMS, which has been very recently released.
I am Mathias Lesniak. I am project ambassador for TYPO3. I'm from Norway.
Thanks, Matthias. I'm Jeffrey McGuire. I've been in open source since 2005. My first project was Drupal. My second project was TYPO3. I co-founded the German Drupal Association. I have had a lot of community and professional interactions in and around open source since then, and for the last 8 years I'm the co-founder of Open Strategy Partners, and we do marketing and strategy for B2B tech and open source organizations, and we love it. So that's me. Right, so another 60-second round. There's a new requirement that's being put into open source law that every open source conference has to use this XKCD comic at least twice, so I hope someone else has got it in their deck. In 60 seconds, please, let's go in reverse order. Matthias, in 60 seconds, what is the top open source sustainability issue that is affecting you, us, the people around you, the world?
People do not understand open source. We have a big problem, well, that we in the open source community think that people know what open source is, but the truth is, shh, don't tell anyone, nobody knows what open source really is.
Yeah, we had a whole talk about that a year ago here on the stage.
Sorry.
All right. Lenny.
Well, I think that it's very often down to the, as we call it, makers and takers, that people, well, one group of people are really excited about contributing back to the community, and there is another group who just don't care about any appreciation of that hard work.
And appreciation you don't mean stars on GitHub, you mean appreciation?
Yeah, financial appreciation.
Okay, thank you. Emiel.
I think speaking as one voice is something that's really important. I'm a marketeer in this open source world with many technical people, and the power of marketing also from the other side is highly underestimated.
What is the other side in that case?
Proprietary companies.
Right. Interesting side note to that is that I have been to events in the last year with a mix of proprietary and open source people, and the proprietary content management colleagues who've been doing content management for 25 years still say, well, why doesn't open source fix this problem? Like, we're considered a block outside, and inside we're all like, Drupal, typo, right? So yes, I think lack of unity is an interesting point. Thank you.
So I think one of the things what is important right now is that we're just software. Let's not get crazy about it and just talk about us as being software, because special treatment or whatever, I think that's not needed in many ways. Just treat us as software and as a software company.
Are you implying that if we pay for all the other software, then why shouldn't people pay us for open source software?
Exactly. But also, it's also the flip side of this is like, why do I get these questions about how my software functions? Like, are you asking the same questions to another software vendor, right? So yes, I'm open source, and then a bunch of rules come across like you need to ask X, Y, Z, right? Why? Is it important to you? If it is, then ask me. But if you think I'm open source and I need this treatment, then no.
Right. Okay. If anyone else has seen the integration code between different Microsoft apps that are allegedly compatible, it's amazing. So, yeah. Please, what is the top open source sustainability issue that is affecting you?
I think I want to take a step back. When open source started, the people making open source and the people using open source were basically all developers. It was a small world. We didn't all know each other, but we knew of each other, and it was easy to start contributing because you were a developer. What we see now is that open source has grown exponentially, and the average user of open source doesn't even realize they're using open source. They don't even know what open source is anymore. So the fact that it's in your car, it's in your dishwasher, it's everywhere, it's on your Android phone, people don't even know that they're using open source, they have no clue, which means that the user base has grown exponentially, but the amount of contributors has not grown nowhere near as much. And we're actually struggling to get new contributors and new funding, because the next generation says, we're not doing it for free. And rightfully so, I don't blame them. But this disconnect between the users and the actual projects is huge. Just to give you some perspective, CodeSniffer has about 400,000 projects using it. I've got an open collective and I've got GitHub sponsors set up, etc. We have about 50, maybe 60 monthly contributors funding-wise. 50 or 60, something like that. Out of 400,000. Let that sink in.
The smart comment from the front was, well, that's more than 1%. Okay. Oh, so we knew this was going to be a cheerful day. And my quick concern is
just for perspective, it's not. 1% would be 400 companies.
So anyway, I have the same concern about the sustainability of our ability to be creative, to earn money, to have professions, to help other people have professions, all the sharing and helping that we do in the world, and the enablement that we do in the world. I have a deep concern that both with the so-called AI technologies and the LLMs, and also open source technologies, that the work that Juliette puts in, the work that you put in, the work that we put into these open source software projects, and the knowledge of ours that has been scraped off of the web, all of our blog posts, all of our, dank memes on Reddit, are being baked into proprietary driven technologies where we don't derive any benefit from them, and in the worst case, we are being absolutely cut off from the value of the work that we've put into these things, and I'm very worried that AI and open source are becoming moats to enable the usual suspects to get richer and more powerful on the backs of our work, right? The starting theme of the talk, or the fourth slide, was, hey, you put it under that license, not my problem, right?
Mm-hmm. And one of the really interesting things that I came over in that talk at WordCamp Europe was also the interesting fact that if you think about yourself as an open source developer, are you really a good businessman or businesswoman? The answer is probably no. And are you going to spend the time that you would otherwise use on fixing bugs, on marketing and running a business? The answer is also probably no, right?
It also requires a different skill set.
Yeah.
I would say that it's not necessarily so. Because we have examples of the companies that are using open source and they are contributing back, and they are meanwhile really growing and successful businesses. Part of the Drupal community, we have a lot of the Drupal certified partners that actually succeed in what they do, but the thing is they do not forget to give back. And that's the key aspect of the success, I would say, because you not only promote yourself, but you promote the technology that you are using, and you are making sure that it is getting better, and you are being the part of this progress and this success.
How is it that you have, so I'm interested to know if you have any idea of the scale of the Drupal landscape compared to how many partners there are and how many companies are making that smart commitment, right? How many of them are aware that they're, as you were saying to me earlier, investing in the tools that keep their businesses alive?
I don't have a number for you, but I can certainly say not enough, I guess. Because if we would have every company, every second company, let's say, that is using Drupal, contributing back either time and talent or in financial way by supporting the events, or by, actually paying the fee by being the Drupal certified partner, I think that we would have way less troubles by developing the core, or hiring new people to be the part of the engineering or any other team of the Drupal Association. So yeah, the budget restrictions would be much less of a problem.
So, but isn't that a monetization issue you should solve as such? Because then you need to look at your monetization strategy here.
Well, we are looking into the monetization things, monetization strategies. However, the thing is, the problem that I'm talking about is that part of the community are rather takers than makers. You see, so whatever monetization you can set in place, it will not change that some people just do not want to give back.
Not just that, I think there's also plenty of roles in development, in open source, which you cannot monetize. If you have a role as a security officer for a big open source project, how can you're not even allowed to talk about what you do. How can you monetize this? I think far more we need to look at this, not in the form of selling something as a business, but as a form of insurance. If you are a business and you're built on open source and that open source project would go away, rewriting all the software which was built on top of it would bankrupt your company. If that's the case, you have an unmitigated business risk and you need to insure it. And the only way you can insure it in the form in the context of open source is by contributing to the project, preferably with funding, but also with people.
Can I respond? I work at SUSE. We make $700 million a year approximately, and monetization obviously is a very important topic. What is helping us in Europe at the moment is European legislation. There is European legislation. It became effective the 18th of October last year for the whole of Europe, that the NIS2 Compliance Act was there. So you need to be NIS2 compliant if you are a company or an organization with more than 10 million revenue per year, or you have 50 people or more working for you. If you are in that category, that means that you need to be NIS2 compliant. To be NIS2 compliant, you must have your software to be checked by an official instance, and if this organization says yes, you are there, then this organization that is NIS2 compliant will have an easier conversation in front of a judge once it appears that the software was not secure or it was not supported well enough. So I think there is in the open source world quite a bit of discussion about Cyber Resilience Act, about different legislation. I think for us here in Europe it helps us a lot in monetizing, because we can use this aspect. Like if you want to be secure, if you want to be not personally liable as a CEO of a large company or large organization, make sure that you are NIS2 compliant.
Yes, as an interesting. So I really like the idea that the insurance metaphor is very powerful to me, and I think that there's a concept that a story that we can tell, which is just beyond the, hey, you got so much from us, it would be really nice if you could like help us out too. And if you can talk about it in terms of proper business risk, I think that's really powerful. Certification risk is really important for larger clients. Here's an interesting thing, I think, especially for the two of you involved in bigger businesses. The European regulatory processes around the Cyber Resilience Act, around even GDPR, were the usual big players, right? And the front end of the internet and the content management players are not involved, and you know, you represent a different style of business and a very different sort of a community. Please pull us along. Matthias was in Brussels last week attending a bunch of stuff, and there's some scary changes that are coming that we're going to have to deal with soon as well. When Matthias and I were preparing this, we thought sustainability could be thought about in terms of new features and innovation, like keeping relevant. We thought that maintenance and ongoing operations is a very relevant part of any project or software life cycle. And governance is people don't think about it. I don't think people think about it as much as they should. And without good governance, all sorts of things fall apart. I think that probably resonates with you. So, and we came up with these straw man questions just to get us going. So like if you look towards the bottom, there's the, like, how often do you need new features compared to supporting ongoing maintenance and security patches and all that kind of stuff? You know, where else is the sustainability? Where does sustainability happen, right? I'd love to hear more thoughts in that direction.
You want an answer on how anyone in the, well, actually the whole world, in this specifically case in Europe, can influence. There is a European lobby organization for open source called APEL, A-P-E-L-L, and they are
link in the show notes.
They are an umbrella organization where we now, for the Netherlands, but in Germany there is the OSBA, in Finland there's the COS, in French there's organization. So there are now 8 countries who have a representation within this lobby organization that lobbies in Europe. So they really have a lobbyist walking around there talking the right, giving the right information regarding what is open source and also what is it not. And through the country representation, so in the Netherlands, the DOSBA, we are really in the process of founding our alliance at the moment. So you can go to the website. It's very plain at the moment, but on the 20th of March we have the next meeting, and then we want to propose our memorandum of understanding and the statutes and all these kind of things. So we are actually able to all have a voice in the lobby for Europe. So the next Cyber Resilience Act or the next AI Act, which is coming up, has got the thought of open source really embedded into it.
From the beginning, right?
From the absolute beginning.
Just one little bit about AI. I know AI is all hip and happening. As an open source maintainer, I literally forbid it in every single project. Why? Because I do not know what the AI is trained on. In other words, I might be introducing GPL license code in an MIT project, and I would have to defend that project and the fact that I merged that in court. This is a copyright violation. This is a problem with every single open source project for licensing. Do not use AI in open source, please.
That is a really interesting point, and I think, we mentioned, the innovation and features part, which I think is often the way that open source projects are financed. You have to invent something really cool so that people can pay you. That's, by the way, also the way that development aid works. If you're going to build a bridge, nobody's going to pay you to maintain the bridge for 100 years after it's built, right? Because that's in some way boring. It's not what people usually see. But maintenance, again, is the insurance policy behind the software. It's where you actually, when the hit shits the fan, the shit hits the fan. That's when it really starts counting. And then the thing we really don't talk about, but which is becoming really important, especially in the European Union at the moment, is the governance, because a software project that is well governed will have a much easier path to being compatible with the regulations. And we're seeing that open source is becoming a regulated business in Europe, and it's probably going to spread further out as well. And I think it's, we're forgetting some parts of this process. I think it's very easy to sell the brand new stuff, but also I'm thinking about, the code sniffer, for example. Does that really interest your client in the end? Is your client gonna, ask questions if you put code sniffer support on your invoice? That's the governance part that we very, very seldom see.
So I think that one thing we should not forget here is sales and marketing. Those are such crucial pieces here. We write beautiful code, we do beautiful stuff, but we need to market and sell it as well. So if you talk about insurers, I say, okay, let's go for it. Let's package it and let's sell it. That's the thing. And I think we need to allow ourselves, because many projects out there with companies behind them, right? They have this open source project, become successful. Hey, let's start a company. And they're trying to figure out how to make money out of that. And let's watch them closely. I see different models popping up, and let's use this to our advantage. But I do think that sales and marketing are like pivotal to make this happen overall and make the whole ecosystem grow for open source.
I would like to step in for your previous point regarding the AI. I kind of agree to disagree because I don't believe that for open source the way is to fight the progress. And of course, AI is not solution to everything, far from that. But essentially also it's like it can be mindful, it can be mindless, right? It can be responsible use of the tool or irresponsible. So indeed, when we are talking about LLM, we have to be aware of like actually which data is used for the learning of that particular system. But there is like many options on the market. So I just wanted to say that I cannot completely agree with you when you asking people not to use AI in the open source project, even more so in our recently released Drupal CMS, which is low-code, no-code solution. We are using AI in order to improve the user journey for the end users. So I think if you do that mindfully, there is nothing bad about it.
But there's a difference in using AI for helping onboarding people and for writing code.
Yeah, but
there's a difference in the licensing.
So you were, I think your scope was at the code creation and submission level.
100%, because that's where the license applies.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. But once again, if we were talking about the maintenance or things like that, I can potentially be useful for the setting up of the automatic updates, etc., which is related to code, which saves the time of the developers and the effort.
But it's not license.
Okay.
Right, because you're thinking about the actions that are kicked off by an LLM assessing something and saying, yes, secure, yes, clear, yes, build me another branch, right? And she's talking about the like actual semicolon here.
I see.
This, yeah.
Okay. But this is, I mean, this is a place where open source is also playing a role right now. I don't think you can actually define an AI as being open source. It's kind of difficult, but still, there is now an open source definition of AI. And one example I heard of that, which plays very well in with what Juliette mentioned, is, for example, if you train an AI and you make it open source, you have to specify all of the sources that you have used. And a banal example is that the King James Bible, which you might not train an AI on, but it's a good example, is public domain in most countries. In the UK, it has Crown copyright, which means that it is not open. And knowing those kind of things when you use an AI is really important, and that demonstrates how important it is that open source also plays into this area of AI.
So I want to maybe one more kickoff thought. It's clear to all of us that open source software creates value, and we, as long as we've been around, it's been hard to get that value down through every level to like be sustainable for contributors, maintainers, projects, and so on. So we're adding value, and there's a flow of value. Where is it added, and where does it stop, and why does it stop?
So, through the whole chain, I would say. So wherever it happens. But I think the problem lies, like, we're thinking like, hey, they're not paying us or whatever. I think it's up to us to come up with a method to make sure that people are paying us for the work we're doing.
Sales and marketing guy.
Yeah.
That's great. So tell the story of that value, right? And I don't like writing, I see you. I don't like writing negative copy, and I don't like marketing with fear, uncertainty, and doubt with FUD. But, you know, there's a good 100, 200 years of learning how to sell insurance that we could actually probably put together and be like, boy, I'd really hate to see your house get on fire, right? That's I do, and I believe in the power of stories, so yes. Boris.
Thanks a lot. So I'm a little bit on the sales side. I often see that, for instance, the open source is not really compatible to business. So basically we struggle in making the case why the people should give us money, and that's the whole culprit. To give you a rough example, I tend to also try to convince people of contributing in donating, and donating simply doesn't work. If you have a clear price tag and you attach a fixed amount of set of features, then this gets way easier, and then basically the money flows in. That's my opinion. How do you see that?
I can respond to that. I work at SUSE, and we are really focusing on purely on enterprise businesses, enterprise customers. That means that if fantastic coding is being developed for something which is not relevant for enterprises, we don't pay for it. We pay our developers, and we have 2,500 people working for SUSE, and quite a few of them are developers. So we pay them only to create stuff which we can sell. If we cannot sell it, we don't pay for it. So I think that's the essence. You can in marketing, there's a difference between something a product can do and something a product can sell. And it can be the same, and if you can find this overlapping piece, then you have a business case, and we, SUSE, but many other open source companies, can pay for what you do.
I think that's quite a different story if we are talking about, let's say, Drupal Association, right? Because we're an NGO and we are working in a very different manner than SUSE does. And I guess one of the keys perhaps might be in the diversification of the products that you provide. So we have Drupal Core, and now we have Drupal CMS, which is targeting absolutely different, well, not absolutely, but quite different groups of people. And I do agree with you. So in our line of work, we have to provide some value back to our partners, because otherwise it would be, well, I mean, it wouldn't be fair of us as well. So obviously we are working on the ways to get the value back in a way that's like, okay, how we can help our partners to open the doors to the new markets, how we can promote Drupal in order to lead more potential customers to our partners. We do not work directly with the, I don't know, with the end users of the, which would be called clients perhaps by most of the of the present company. But yeah, so as I say, so as we are rather in partnership with the businesses that serve their clients, we need to listen also to their needs, and we do our best in order to collaborate and bring the people to their business, because, well, however you put it, it's the main value if you are the business owner.
Now, when you are talking SUSE, when you're talking Drupal, we're talking larger organizations. The vast majority of open source are maintained by people like me, like one person basically, with drive-by contributors, maybe a few regular contributors. For them to do marketing and sales on top of what they already do, one, it is a different skill set. Two, it is even more work. And you then have to make a choice. Do I want to build this feature, or do I want to get paid? Yeah. So, and as a dev, I choose for building that new feature, but that's probably not in my best interest. But this is the kind of balancing which most open source maintainers need to do.
So do we have a type of, okay, I'll be evil with you two. You know, there are certain businesses that make money with open source, right? And that are truly open source still. So they're not Google or that type. But are you complacent in your role? Is there a responsibility that you have with 700 million of supporting open source as a whole? I mean, apart from outside of your project as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything we develop, we give it back to the community. Everything is being given back in a open source initiative, appreciated licensing. So if we develop something, that means that we bring it back to the community. And if then the community can use it in any sort of way, then feel free alongside this license that says, well, it's OP it's standard, right? So what we develop, we give it back. I think that's the clear answer. We really, really appreciate and fully embrace the open source standards. Does that answer your question?
I don't know fully. One of the things I've noticed, now going to Brussels and looking at how different open source organizations deal with policy, for example, I would say that organizations like SUSE, for example, and some of your collaboration partners in the infrastructure field are really good at this, because I think that being in infrastructure, if it fails, it's really bad, right? And I think we in the CMS world, or even limited to the PHP world, have not yet come in that situation where we realize that, well, PHP is running websites on, what is it, 75% of the web, and if those go down, it's a problem. There's some kind of divide in there, and I wonder, let me rephrase. Is there a role for these, established infrastructure companies who have learned a lot about how to do this? Do you have a role in helping us, the poor, unknowledgeable PHP guys, to learn how to deal with infrastructure in the way that you do and earn money from it and finance it?
Earning money is about focusing. So if you want to earn money, you must make sure that you focus either on a certain small target group, for us enterprises, and if it's not in our core business, if it's not in our prime focus, then we don't spend money on it. Except there is the Geeko Foundation. This is Geeko. Hello, Geeko. And the Geeko Foundation, that's our open source, alliance, which also is bringing SUSE Linux to the market, but they do it for other target groups, so for small, medium enterprises, for consumers who really love to work with OpenSUSE, which, by the way, is a fantastic distribution. So it's about focus. If you spend your time in something where other companies, people are willing to pay for, then it's worth developing.
I think Emiel is brilliant in avoiding the direct answers. But yeah, so I think like what Mathias was talking about is, are you guys like also sharing some marketing knowledge with other open source? Because like I know that what we are currently do within the Drupal community, I will give you an example. We have NEDA, which is basically the gathering of the local associations, and they are sharing the materials that they have with other associations, local associations, especially Dutch one is very good in that, on like how you can establish your own association, how you can like get the sponsorship for local companies, etc. So yeah, I think that's mainly about that kind of sharing marketing wisdom. So do you do something like that?
Yes, in this case, for example, what we do is we support in the Netherlands HBO's or Universities of Applied Science. If they want to run SUSE software or SUSE technologies in their university, then we have a project where we fully support them. So at least the future generation, and there's also of course a commercial importance there, that the future generation that finishes uni, that are usable for us to hire and to keep on developing. So that's one of the examples. We also have projects where we can just say, anyone who works at SUSE can say, well, I really love that project. So if there is something in TYPO3 that I really like, I can say, okay, to a limited number of times per year, I really like the project, and without any further ado, I can nominate that project for getting some extra funding.
Yeah, but this is all virtue signaling, right? This is all virtue signaling. So I think, again, let me go back to the software argument. Let's talk about what do they need. And if you have something specific, point that out. That's your selling point. So don't hide between this container term called open source, because that's not what you're selling. You're selling something what it represents for the other end, and make clear that the other end knows what the value is you offer. So you want something where you want to revise the code. Sure, that's possible. Put it in. Let me know that this is what you want. This is the type of software you need. Don't use the term open source as such. That's what I think.
To sell CodeSniffer in that sense should be really easy. On an average team of 10 people, I estimate you save half a developer every month, based on automated fixes, based on code review, which goes a lot smoother, based on certain mistakes which get caught before they get merged into the code base. You save half a developer a month. Give me 10% of the salary you save, and we would not be having this conversation. Except companies do not do it, even if you have very clear added value.
I would say that when you're saying like don't tell you're selling open source. Once again, agree to disagree. Sorry, mood of the day, I guess.
Healthy.
Yeah, but I think that like we should be talking about open source because like precisely the problem that we raised earlier today in this conversation, the problem is that people do not know what their, I don't know, website or like their like any sort of software, like, I don't know, think about the fridge running on, right?
But I see it so often. So yeah, just bring me the open source software. I say, what? What do you want? So it represents so many things for so many people. So let's make it clear what they want. So you want to have multiple vendors out there offering you the same thing. Well, ask for that. Don't ask for open source software, but be clear what you want from the other end. Don't ask for open source. Make clear what it represents to you, because the other end doesn't know. So you need to make this very clear.
Thank you very much. We're at 5 o'clock, and I mean, I said we were going to be very Swiss today. Also, I think we've managed to be very Dutch. And we've also talked about regulations, so we managed the German part as well. Should make everyone happy in here. But I think at this point, do you have a last word you want to say?
Only famous last words.
So thank you all for taking the time. I would like to take this recording and write about us next week or the week after. And I've asked everyone if they could talk with me again. So I'm going to do interviews with each of you or in pairs or however we want to do to go further into this topic. Because obviously we haven't solved open source today. I feel, there is tons of money, tons of value floating around, and some groups and people figure out how to get more of it, and some of us haven't. I have an instinctive feeling that the stories are a big part of this. I also feel that it's easier for you to have money because your customers have money, right? And your users are neither customers nor necessarily themselves, billionaires or whatever, right? So we're different distances from the monetary part of the value chain, and I think we have to think about that. So thank you all so much. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Boris, for your question. Whatever Matthias says now, after that, we need to do a group photo for the camp up here on stage.
I'm going to say group photo on the stage.
All right.
Now,
thank you,
everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Oh yeah. I think everyone here except me is going to be here this evening for the drinks event, so you could keep the conversations going. And if anybody has anything interesting to say, report back to me. But thank you very much.
Before you all leave, I know Jam has to be in a hurry, but I would like to thank you also on behalf of everybody here. Thank you very much for taking your time in this valid discussion, and take your time for being here and take your travel. Thank you very much, and yeah, we will have discussion afterwards with the drink.
Take your glasses.
Yeah.